podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
We begin this week's episode paying tribute to one of British Speedway's leading figures over the years, Jon Cook. British Speedway is deeply shocked and saddened to learn of the passing of former Vice Chairman Jon Cook. Jon died on Monday at the age of 55. He had a glittering career as one of the leading voices in the sport with Eastbourne, Arena Essex, and he returned to Eastbourne for 2019. A passionate person, he was always keen to get his views across and was a great servant to the sport after starting out as a second half rider and rode in 4 meetings for Eastbourne in 1989 and 90. During his initial spell as promoter at Arlington, he won the league title in both 95 and 2000, and also the Knockout Cup 3 times. He oversaw Arena Essex rebrand as Lakeside, reaching the playoffs and moved back to Eastbourne when the Arena Raceway closed. British Speedway chairman Rob Godfrey said everyone connected with British Speedway Promoters Limited is in shock at this news. Our first thoughts are with Jon's family. The Bull Pirates promoter Matt Ford was a particular close friend of Jon Cook's, and Matt joins us now. Matt, thanks for joining us on what is a very sad day, both for British Speedway and for you personally, and this news has come as a huge shock.
Extremely sad news that I received this morning from Jacob Cook, Jon's son, who phoned me to inform me that Jon sadly passed away yesterday, Monday the 3rd of May, and that at this point in time they're not entirely sure the reasons behind it. So let's not speculate about that until we find out for sure what had actually happened. But it's I have to say, Jon and I were really good friends. We had a telephone conversation last week for about an hour in length, and we were really putting the world to rights and just having fun as we always did. And Jon Cook was simply, in my opinion, was both a great speedway promoter, involved in clubs that weren't always that easy to run in terms of finance and etc. But Jon was always so good at doing it, and as a person, just the absolute best. He and I had such great respect, I believe, for each other, and have helped each other on many occasions. And I'm truly devastated by the news that we've just all heard.
He started out as a second half rider, but crossed the tracks then into promotion. What are your memories of working alongside him within Speedway from the promoting side and the management side of the sport?
Jon and I both served on the management committee, as it was once known in Speedway, at the same time. And it always made the trip worthwhile because those events were sometimes not the best of fun, but to be with Jon, it always made the trip worthwhile. And you know, he was always tough to beat in respect on track and off track. He was so. I don't even like speaking about him in the past tense. I've got to be honest. This is so new to us all, and Jon was just an absolute gem. I mean, our friendship grew and grew in the last sort of 10 years. We had some moments earlier on in our Speedway careers where the two of us were, you know, the young kids on the block 20 years ago. And of course, all this time later, we're still about, which is alarming in itself, but just a great guy. I think now I just think about it's towering above me at 5'8", and he is 6'4", but the friendship that we had, and just the fun that we had together in this quite wonderful sport of Speedway, and you know, we have all lost someone that gave the sport so much, and personally, I've lost a great friend, and it's really hard to talk about this at this moment in time.
And when you think of Jon, what are the memories that instantly come back to you the most when you think of Jon Cook?
I personally had a problem 7 or 8 years ago, and Jon stood up and supported me mentally at the time when I was feeling very low about something, and I have to say that was always on my mind every time I saw him or thought of him, and how giving he was of his time and of just trying to always please people. He actually always supported the underdog, which is why at times when the Pirates were fairly dominant, that he would often support the other team, and that was part of his nature and part of the fun of it, because we just used to go into a form of battle, but always come out and have a drink afterwards, and just, you know, I can't. I mean, for his two sons, for Jacob and Kai, that are both lovely lads, and I know Jon worshipped, and for those two to be having this news at this point in time, you know, in their lives is just devastating, and I feel sorry for us all, but in particularly those two are in my thoughts, and having spoken to Jacob today, who's incredibly strong, I can see where he's got it from. It's such hard news for these two young lads to take. So, you know, he's given the sport so much. I do hope that somehow we can honour him in the way that he honoured our sport.
I know it can't have been very easy for you to do this, so we really appreciate you coming on and giving your memories and your tribute to Jon Cook. Thank you very much, Matt Ford.
Thanks a lot, Ian.
Poole Pirates promoter Matt Ford leading the tributes to his friend and colleague Jon Cook, former vice chairman of British Speedway and promoter at Eastbourne, Arena Essex and Lakeside, who died this week. After a subdued start, let's begin with this week's episode of No Brakes, No Fear, the official British Speedway podcast. I'm Ian Brannan, and over the next 50 minutes or so, we're going to hear from lots of people. We're going to be hearing from Eastbourne and Kings Lynn captain Lewis Kerr on his hopes for the season ahead. We're also going to hear from Joe Screen. The British Speedway legend was on hand to help out some of the riders of today, and some interested amateurs who've taken advantage of the offer from Belle Vue Aces to try out and experience the National Speedway Stadium circuit. And he's been there giving his advice on how to get the best out of the track, so we'll hear from him in just a bit. We're also going to hear from Phil Lanning, who has got some advice for Speedway promoters everywhere, really. He's got many, many years' experience in journalism. He's a reporter for the Sun newspaper. He also contributes regularly to the Speedway Star on what he thinks Speedway needs to do to increase those column inches. And we're going to start off by taking a look at Sheffield's prospects for this season with Simon Stead.
No Brakes, No Fear, the official British Speedway podcast.
Welcome to another episode of No Brakes, No Fear, the official podcast of British Speedway. Let's start then with a roundup of some things that have been happening across Speedway from the past 7 days, and we're getting tantalisingly close to the day where fans are back in, the day we've all been waiting for. British Speedway is already underway, and we'll touch on that in a moment, but British Speedway's Premiership clubs are aiming to launch ticket sales for their first events of the season. Tuesday, May the 11th is the date for your diary. Promoters have been working to ensure all supporters understand the ticket sales process for their club during a period of restrictions for entry to sporting venues, subject to the government roadmap going ahead as planned, as is the case right now, meaning Step 3 can begin on May 17th. All clubs will put tickets on sale at 9 a.m. on May the 11th, so check your club's website for more information on the situation regarding your particular club. Some changes at the Kings Lynn Stars. Dale Allett has increased his role with Kings Lynn to allow owner Keith Chapman to reduce his workload. Chapman, who also owns Peterborough, is keen to spend more time with his family and is happy to leave Allett to oversee the daily business. Peter Schroek remains as Kings Lynn manager for the new season, with Allett and Chapman staying as co-promoters. But Allett, who spent the winter helping out at Peterborough following the departure of Carl Johnson, will be more involved this season as Chapman enjoys more leisure time. And as we just touched on, Berwick made a winning start to the first official match of the British Speedway season in the clash of National Development League newcomers by defeating Armadale 50-40 at Shielfield Park. The Bullets heat leaders won 8 races between them, with Kyle Bickley top scoring with 12 points. Skipper Leon Flint with 11 dropped only 1 point from 4 rides. I'm pleased to say Leon Flint joins us now on the official British Speedway podcast. Leon, welcome. It must have been pretty weird for you to be finally out there and racing competitively.
Totally. It felt a bit surreal, just seeing 7 lads in one pit. Obviously we've had some individuals and stuff like that, but to actually have the first home fixture was so good. So good to get back. Just felt, like I said, didn't feel real. I was speaking to my dad, and he said he came out the office and just looked, and it was just so good to see that we've got a bit of normality back.
Yeah, I think it was just great, and people are just relieved to have a bit of league speedway here on these shores as well, and rather than watching stuff from around the world, because the live stream went really well. I know lots of people are watching that, and the perfect performance from the Bullets to open the season. Yeah,
I think it's good for Berwick to get everything kicked on. I think job with it all. I'm not into the management and politics of it all. And from what I did see, it was all right for people. I thought it was decent value for your money. But I just hopefully, that's give the fans and stuff a bit of go about it all, and a bit got them all excited for the I think it's the 18th or something.
On a personal note, it was a very good individual performance for you. You dropped 1 point all night from 4 rides, which you must be chuffed with, and especially against a strong outfit, because the Armadale team contain Nathan Greaves and Danny Phillips, former National League winners, so up against some serious opposition on Saturday.
Yeah, it was a bit shame I couldn't go all the way with the max, but hey ho, I know I need to work on. I can come away knowing, I've rode well, but what the also good thing is that I can also come away and know that there's a few things that I've done wrong. So, next time we're out, I know not to do them things, and I'll hopefully manage to, get the full house.
And a busy and exciting season in the Flint household, of course. Your dad being the co-promoter at Berwick, and you're involved on all fronts there as well. Must be nice to look forward to a season of racing now.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's a bit of a shame that we're not. From now, it's not super busy, but I think we've got Friday next week, and then a week off, and then we're absolutely flat out. It's going to be a big hit to the system, but I think with everyone having this longer break from it all, I think I don't think anyone's going to be saying no to meetings and being busy.
Well, look, a great start to the season. Well done, Leon, and all the best for the rest of the season coming up.
Cheers, thank you.
Leon Flint speaking on the official British Speedway podcast. Let's turn our attention right now to Premiership Speedway, and in particular the Sheffield Tigers. Sheffield are a team that have been waiting longer than most to make their Premiership debut. They should have been in action last year, but the pandemic saw to that. This year they're back, they're opening their Premiership account, and with a few notable changes in the team. Of course, they were due to be lining up with Nicky Pedersen, but he's had to make way due to the Polish restrictions and international travel problems as well that we're currently facing in the world. But that said, Sheffield have still got a very strong lineup and still being fancied by many to mount a serious title challenge in 2021. Let's find out more about that Tigers team. Robin Allen has been speaking with team manager Simon Stead, who says he's just pleased to finally get going.
Well, really looking forward to it. It's obviously from the announcement to actually get into track as a Premiership club has been a long time coming. So we've had a lot to look forward to for quite a long time now, and we're all excited about it. I believe we've got a really strong team, and I'm looking forward to it kicking off.
Now, you've had to make some enforced changes, but in people like Troy Batchelor, you couldn't have had a better replacement for someone like Nicky with his experience.
Yeah, that's right. What Troy is a proven performer in this country, a former Grand Prix rider, and somebody that's scored a bag full of points week in, week out in the British Premiership. So we're really happy with how the team's shaped up. Look, it was disappointing that we had to make these enforced changes, but what we had to do was go back to the drawing board, and I'm really happy with what we've got.
And you've got some riders in there that are getting another chance in the Premiership, and you look at sort of Josh Bates. Again, he's a local lad. He's been ridden for Sheffield before, and it's going to be great for him to have this opportunity as a rising star.
I love working with Josh. You know, he's had obviously a few 2 or 3 years now where he's had some horrendous injuries, not necessarily, by riding a speedway bike in some cases, but it's really put him back. But I think what this Rising Star programme does, it gives an opportunity to somebody like Josh, who was it would have been quite easy to lose somebody like him from the sport, and that would have been a real shame with somebody of his ability. So what it does, it gives them a real platform of putting themselves right back into the thick of it, and he's a great kid. He's got a lot of talent on a bike, and he'll fit right into our Sheffield team. A great character, and somebody who I've enjoyed working with before, and who I think I'll be able to get plenty out of him.
And you've got a good mix of lads in there. Obviously you've got Kyle Howarth, Justin Sedgman, James Wright, and there's some good riders in there that have got a point to prove as well.
Yeah, there are. I think Kyle will feel that he's sort of underperformed by his own standards in recent years. But you forget how young he is, and there's still plenty for him to offer the club. He'll be our captain again. He's a great leader, and I think he'll enjoy that added pressure that the captaincy brings. And I expect him to really kick on this year. He's got a good mix of tracks in Leicester and Sheffield. It gives him a good balance of riding the smaller, tighter tracks and the big fast bowl of Sheffield. So I think we will really see him push on this year. Like you said, the balance of the team is really, really good. James is really the unknown, but I think absolutely worth a punt on his average. A proven performer, albeit a number of years ago, but he's not been lost completely to the motorcycle world. He's been a very, very good grass track rider over the last few years, so he's not been completely off a bike. So I expect him to get up to speed really quickly, and I think he'll be a great asset to us on what looks like a bargain average. And then when you start dissecting the rest of the team, Sedgy really has a point to prove. He's had a great off-season, if you like. He's been very active on his speedway bike in Australia, and his results have been very, very good, so that bears well. We just need him to bring what is always he's always such a consistent performer in Australia, and perhaps he's lacked a little bit of that consistency in the UK, but we've had a talk about that, and he's really excited about his opportunity to be able to ride for Sheffield again. I think we saw a very good Justin Sedgman when he finished the season with us a couple of years ago, and he's really excited about his chance. And then we've not even mentioned Jack Holder yet, have we? It's great to look forward to somebody we've seen performing already this season on a stage like the Polish Extraliga. So to see Jack going so well out there, it just really excites the Sheffield fans, public and management, that he's had such a fantastic start to the season over there, and no doubt he's got a point to prove over here, and he'll be a really, really dynamic point scorer for us.
And you're hoping to get back going and have fans on the terraces?
Well, that's what we're all after, isn't it? Like, I think it's been said, sport without fans just doesn't feel right, and it's not been a great year or so for any of us, and I think we're all desperate to start watching live sport again properly on the terraces, supporting your club, whoever that might be. And as a Sheffield fan, I'm part of the management structure at Sheffield. I really can't wait.
Yeah, good luck to Simon Stead and the Sheffield Tigers team heading into 2021, opening their account in the Speedway Premiership on the first day where fans are allowed in. 17th of May at the National Speedway Stadium, they face the Belle Vue Aces. What a way to start your Premiership campaign. And of course, we'll have more build-up to that fixture between now and May 17th. On the way, we're going to hear from a rider who's captaining two teams this year, both the Eastbourne Eagles and the Kings Lynn Stars. We'll hear from Lewis Kerr in a little while. And next, we're going to hear from Phil Lanning. You'll have read his words, no doubt, in the Speedway Star or indeed national newspapers. And being the son of, perhaps you could argue, British Speedway's greatest ever commentator, he knows a thing or two about the sport. And he also has some ideas of how British Speedway can get itself back in the headlines. What are those national papers actually looking for? We'll hear from Phil Lanning in just a couple of moments here on No Breaks, No Fear, the official British Speedway podcast.
No Breaks, No Fear, the official British Speedway podcast.
Welcome back. In this section, we're going to be speaking with somebody whose name you will probably know quite well. Phil Lanning, of course, is a regular contributor to the Speedway Star, and he's also been a journalist for the Sun newspaper for many, many years, and knows full well the struggles that many sports face when trying to make the headlines. Of course, it's a lot easier for, say, football or cricket to make the back pages. But how does Speedway get itself in those national publications, and what are the challenges, and what can Speedway do to make itself perhaps a little bit more newsworthy and get itself in these places where maybe youngsters will see of the sport and come down and check it out and find out more about it in person? Well, Phil has all this experience, and we're going to talk to him now. Of course, he is well versed in Speedway, coming from the Lanning family, his dad being the legendary commentator Dave Lanning. He grew up very much around the sport, and we're going to talk about that first, in fact. Hi, Phil.
Good evening. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for joining us. First of all, let's talk about your early days with the sport, because, as we mentioned there, growing up as the son of British Speedway's greatest commentator, and at the time, really the main commentator for Speedway for such a long period of time, it must have been quite an introduction to the sport at a young age, going around, I imagine, to some of these tracks and witnessing some of this action, either on your TV watching your dad or in person at some of these amazing events.
It was. When I was growing up, I think it was the halcyon days of the sport. I'd like to think that will return, so I'm not going to hark on about the good old days as such. But no, it was. Speedway was absolutely flying at the time. I mean, we were talking about World of Sports was covering Speedway on a Saturday afternoon and was doing figures of something like 13 million viewers. And because of that, the Sun and other newspapers were covering Speedway heavily. So it's back page news, big stories, so for me as a child to be going to school and the kids in my class was sort of, to be fair, I got a lot of stick for it. But the most I saw of my dad at some stages was the fact that I was watching him on television on a Saturday afternoon. He was on there more than when I saw him at home. So it was. I perceived it as being very, not just fairly ordinary, but at the same time, it was exciting, and to be part of that, and to go to World Finals at Wembley and with 90,000 fans, that the Pennell final 81 and Test matches. I mean, remember vividly England USA matches were sensational. I mean, Pennell and Schwartz and Jessup and Collins. It was it really was a fantastic era, and I was very, very privileged to be part of that and to have the access that I did to commentary positions and being part of the television setup, because I did that from a very young age, as did my brother and sister. We helped my dad. We were the lackeys. We actually sort of carried his briefcase and took notes during the meeting, and we were his spotters because he had to sort of talk from the monitor. That's what commentators are taught. You actually just talk the pictures which are in front of you, not anywhere else. So if anything else was going on, one of us had to keep an eye out what else was going on, talk to the referee if there was exclusions and if there was something going on in the crowd. So it was a really exciting time, and I remember it very, very fondly.
And of course, these days now with YouTube, there's so much footage still going around with his commentary on, and it still stands the test of time. It's some of the phrasing that's out there that he did at the time, and I mean, commentary, I think, is an incredible skill in itself. I've tried doing it and I can't do it. But to do it on Speedway, particularly, where things are happening so much faster than, say, football or cricket or rugby or whatever, it's a hell of a skill. And to come up with the right words at the right time as well is brilliant. And as I say, people still obviously enjoy watching it now.
It's a bit scary for me at times. I mean, obviously, I lost my father 4 years ago, but I'm frequently reminded that I'm on Facebook and social media, and literally every day of the week I'll be minding my own business, going through, and then sort of there's a commentary of a world final or long track finals or ice finals, and there's I'm greeted with my father's voice, which is a bit eerie at times. It's makes me immensely proud, obviously, but I think you're right. I think commentary is a real art. I think Nigel was very kind about my dad, what he says about him, but Nigel can never undersell what he does, because it is an art there, and there's no school for commentary. My dad had several different types of sayings, and I think the high, wide and handsome ended up being his most famous one, with Peter Collins at Katowice in '76 when he was world champion. And no, that's, again, it's something, it gives me a rosy glow that people still remember. And my dad had a saying throughout his life and throughout his career, said, "You're soon forgotten." And the fact is, the family all feel, I've talked to my brother and sister frequently about this, because he hasn't been, so he was wrong. And so for once in our lives, we managed to say that my dad was wrong, and we can say that, which is a good thing.
Yeah, he will always be remembered, I think, as being commentated, obviously not just for Speedway, but for so many sports as well. Darts, of course, the other one, and another one that's very close to you. But we'll stick to Speedway for now. When you are writing for national newspapers, as you do, and as mentioned there, 29 years now with the Sun newspaper, what is the challenge like, particularly for getting column inches for Speedway, and what are the sort of things that would certainly help you get more coverage of Speedway in those sort of newspapers? I
hate to say this, and Speedway people will probably frown upon this at certain times. Newspapers revolve around, especially tabloid, as people know, it's sort of sex, drugs and rock and roll. You've got to stand out from the crowd. You've got to be controversial. And again, there's a timeline involved here. Is that when my dad when Speedway was attracting huge television audiences on terrestrial television, and when it was making back pages, when Bruce Pennell and Kenny Carter were having fights and telling each other they're going to stuff each other in the fence every week, that's what people love. And that's not me saying that. This is the public that crave this sort of thing, and it's very easy to look at a barometer for this. Again, if you look down the years, there's JFK moments in Speedway where you always remember where you were or what meeting you're at when there was a fight. I guarantee you can do that. I can do it. I can remember fights at Eastbourne in certain meetings, Eastbourne versus Wright House in 1985 when I was 14 years old. Mind you, a fight happens at Eastbourne most weeks, to be fair. But nonetheless, you do remember those moments. We remember Boyce punching Golob. We remember Emil and Scott Nichols at Cardiff. We remember, Greg Hancock jumping on Nicky Pedersen. That says it all. And if you go onto YouTube, which is the biggest platform now for for viewing any sort of coverage of sport or anything, to be fair. Look at the viewing figures. And look at the viewing figures for... Scott Nicholls has won, 7 British titles? Yeah, if you go onto YouTube and type in Scott Nicholls, something like 1.3 million people watched his fight with Emil Sayfutdinov. So, again, Speedway has to sort of compete in a very, very small market now in newspapers. There's one page, is what we call the first page of sport, which is the first one you come to in the back of it. Not the back page, it's the one which is the first page. And you're fighting amongst snooker, darts, boxing, golf. The rest of it's all football. After that, you're competing for one page for other sports. And to actually make that headline, to get a page lead, is extremely hard, and it's got to be exciting, and it's got to be out there. And so Speedway has got to do that. I know that it's frowned upon. I know that the ACU and SCB, don't want people fighting here, there and everywhere. And rightly so, there has to be a line in the sand. But at the end of the day, just look at the interest it generates. Look at what controversy generates in the world. And that's what people stop. It stops people on timelines, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And so that's what it's got to go to. I mean, and again, I refer back to it's happened in the past. Nothing's changed. That's what people still want. The public still want controversy. They still talk about things when it's controversial. And so, that's what Speedway needs to do. Sadly, it's not going to generate anything if it's just about the track was good tonight or someone broke a track record at Belle Vue. Sadly, that doesn't make headlines. It needs to be exciting. Danger as well. Speedway needs to, I know riders personally. I don't want to see anyone hurt, but this is a natural thing of Speedway. Its greatest asset is its danger. Again, I refer to YouTube. But if you look at YouTube, I think the second biggest watched incident in Speedway is when Chris Harris was run over in the playoff final at Poole and got up and ran back to the pits and ended up winning the league for Coventry. Mm-hmm. So again, this is not me saying that. The facts are there. The barometer is there, and Speedway just needs to understand that more. And people need to sort of play to that more. And Speedway, because it's got everything else, the ingredients of Speedway's all there. It's got the danger, it's got the excitement, it's raw, it's gritty. But we just need to let it breathe a bit and let it get out there and let people see Speedway for what it really is.
Does Speedway need more of those characters, the sort of more love 'em or hate 'em characters that maybe wind the crowd up a little bit more, like pantomime villains, if you will? Do we have enough of them these days?
There were promoters who understood that. We don't really have that these days. We don't have the sort of the Len Silvers, the Ian Thomases, and my dad. It was this sort of, they got there and they wound each other up and they got in front of the crowd and they said things to each other and they got the riders wound up and it all got sort of, there was lots of, crikey. I remember going to Eastbourne and Canterbury when my father was there and Johnny Hoskin was at Canterbury. And the place was booing. The place was packed out and people were booing and jeering, and that's what you want. You don't want WWE wrestling, but you want a bit of excitement. And I think, and again, you want these guys to turn up. You want people to be. I want to see. I can't remember the last time I saw someone. I used to love the phone was in front of the starting gate when the home manager used to pick it up and smash the phone and all that used to go on, and it gets people going. It makes kids think about Speedway. They love all that. Crikey, look at the stadiums packed with that god awful wrestling, which is all made up and people hitting each over the heads with tinfoil things, to make it look like that. But Speedway used to happen. That was for real. And that's what we've got to get back to. We just want to get back to that raw excitement. And again, we need pantomime villains. And I'm not saying to make it all up, because if you let Speedway breathe and let people do this, then it tends to happen anyway. But let's not shut it down. Don't hide from it. Just let it happen naturally and let evolution, and that will create headlines and excitement and talking points. I see this all the time on BT, that it all happens on the Grand Prix and suddenly it's, oh no, we don't want to see that. This is bad. No, people want to see it. People want to see punch-ups and stuff, and it's exciting and it gets your blood temperature up, doesn't it?
There's always something quite quite ironic, I think, sometimes about speedway riders having a punch up with full safety gear on. It's crash helmets and all that kind of stuff.
I've seen riders. I've known riders to break their wrist by punching someone with a crash helmet.
Really? Wow.
They will remain nameless.
When we're talking about the future of Speedway, obviously people will say, well, youngsters these days, they don't go to the Speedway. And we know that's not the case because, we even with reporters as well, we've had Joe Appleton on in the last few weeks, Lee Wild, who's a young reporter in Manchester, Robin Allen, Ryan Guest, and your own son, Taylor Lanning, who's an outstanding photographer as well. So they're getting involved. And there are youngsters coming through the gates, maybe not as many as we'd like, but it is that challenge of getting that younger generation away from PlayStations and into the stadiums, isn't it?
Again, I refer to exactly what's been what's happened in the past and what's interesting for kids to watch. And again, I can tell my all three of my children absolutely adore the sport. And it's a curious thing as well why there's a sort of vacuum somewhere. I don't know where it is, and I know that there's probably lots of promoters feel this. And I know, for instance, Glasgow know this. The promotion there is that once you get the kids to come in and watch it, they tend to want to come back. It's just getting them there in the first place. And I think Speedway misses that sort of, again, that controversy element. I don't think Speedway's alone in this problem. I think there's a big problem with getting kids out of their normal routines because obviously video games are so good now. It is difficult to get them away from that. But I do think Speedway has got that ingredient, and Speedway can stop beating itself up, if you like, that it's not good enough to compete with these things, because it is. It still has got a fantastic product. I think it needs to work more on its presentation, hugely. Its presentation would be massive to get kids involved and to feel more of more involvement with it, because this sort of thing where we sort of still working in age-old sort of parades and stuff like that, I think it needs to be far more exciting, far more boxing. Or look what, and again, I'm not going to go on about another sport too much, but again, if you look at the way darts has revolutionised itself, with where darts was perceived 20 years ago as just sort of big guys throwing sharp objects in smoky bars. Now look at the walk-ons, the loud music, the crowd interaction is massive, and look at how darts has gone through the stratosphere now with viewing figures and with attendance. So that area, Speedway, when you get the four guys on a track and the racing, that bit's great. Those 15 minutes are pretty good, yeah, and you probably get about 5 sensational races out of that if you're lucky, but whatever happens, that's still exciting. When those tapes go up, your heartbeat goes up. You don't know what's going to happen, and that for that next minute. But in between all that, Speedway's not good enough on its own. Those 15 minutes aren't good enough. To get kids involved, I think you've got to get a lot more excitement at the start of the event, and to keep that loud music going and really, really sort of sell it in that way. It's got to be constant. I don't think you can have these gaps with children because they get bored very quickly. And so that area's got to be worked on, but Speedway shouldn't be too self-deprecating when it comes to what the product is, because it's still brilliant compared to what other sports are.
On the subject of getting it out there in front of a different audience, obviously the TV deal kicks in this year for British Speedway with Eurosport. Eurosport are going to be taking over not only the TV coverage but running the Speedway Grand Prix next year. They've already got a massive audience base. It's going to be the option of some of the coverage maybe free to air on Quest as well. That's got to be good news, hasn't it, for both passive fans and maybe for those that are going to discover it over the next few years.
Absolutely, and I think to have a broadcast partner is essential, and British Speedway has worked hard to secure that again. And I think it's also very, very important that they are going to promote the sport as well across Europe, and that's massive to have that involvement as well. And again, I think if you look at the way darts has evolved, again, darts really went bananas when it linked with Sky, and Sky were instrumental in the walk-ons and all that sort of how they presented it. You'd like to think that that's what Eurosport can do, and you'd like to think that they can sort of oversee it and really put their input into how you sell the sport as a whole. Again, Eurosport are a terrific channel, and they've got a really, really strong history of how to put sport on in the correct manner. We'll have to see how they put it on. We've been very lucky with Speedway that since 1999 we've had league racing on, either on Sky or BT. It's always been done very well. I have no doubt that Eurosport will do the same job, but it's important for Speedway to make sure that everything they have the best possible racing, and they have the best possible sort of, the riders are good, they say the right things, and it's exciting for the viewers. Speedway has to sell itself as well.
And what would be your advice to, because I know we have a number of young riders listening to this who are, on the fringes, maybe in the Rising Star or in the Development League. What would be your advice from your experience of what they can do to make themselves stand out when that microphone or the reporter comes knocking for a story?
Right, which cap do I put on when I answer this question? Right. From a tabloid journalist hat, I would just say, be honest, be outspoken, say what you think, within reason. I'm not talking about saying anything outrageous here, but I'm saying be honest. Let's wear your heart on your sleeve. Be, again, the great characters, the Kenny Carters of this world who said that sort of stuff and created headlines. Bruce Penhall. And more recently, Ty Woofenden. If I would say to them, be Ty Woofenden. From a professional point of view, that you've got to make sure you say the right things and you do it in the right way, and for the sake of the sport. But somewhere in between the two things, if someone said to me right now, if you were to create a British rider and say, if you wanted 10 more riders of that, I would say, can I have 10 more Ty Woofendens, please? That's what I would want. Ty Woofenden is the absolute model professional speedway rider that this country has been blessed with over the past 10 years or whatever, and we could do with more of him. And because he's been underused, at times he's been tried to be silenced and tried to keep away, but this guy is absolute gold dust. He looks the part, he's exciting, he's cool, he's wild, he's a maverick. He's got all the ingredients, and yet this is a guy who's also raised thousands of pounds for the Great Ormond Street. He's got a heart of gold. He absolutely dotes after his wife and kids. He's got everything about him is right. He's got a fantastic backstory, and if that's what I'd say, if you're Leon Flint or if you're Carl Bickley or whoever you are, Tom Brennan, be Ty Woofenden. I'm not saying get tattooed from head to toe. I'm sure their parents would absolutely string me up for that. But I'm just saying. But nonetheless, he looks cool. He is Speedway, what we want Speedway to look like, and that's what will get us to where Speedway wants to be. That's what will create pages in newspapers. And when he's absolutely the greatest asset Speedway in this country's had for 10 years. I think it's been underused, sensationally underused. But this guy can tell, and I think he's having a huge influence on other people now, like Dan Bewley and Robert Lambert, and I think that's very important. And he's been terrific with Great Britain, with Rob Painter and Vicky Blackwell. They're actually working together, and he's helping them as well. And again, if we can create that feeling and the way he's gone about himself, we're going in the right direction, truly.
And from a point of view of the promoters, we're talking about you've touched on presentation there, which I know has been mentioned a lot over the years as being something that I know it's a tricky art, but there are clubs that do it perhaps better than others, and it is keeping that attention between the heats, as you mentioned, particularly for youngsters who are used to maybe a bit more of a full-on assault on the senses with some sports. So what would you do to fill those gaps?
It's a very difficult situation because it's very difficult to create an atmosphere in an outdoor stadium, and a lot of the stadiums don't belong. Well, 99% don't belong to the Speedway club. So there's you're sort of just turning up and and using that stadium. So it's difficult to sort of arrange anything in that way. I've seen it done with outdoor stadiums. It actually works better. It's very difficult, sadly, to do it in the middle of the summer, to generate an atmosphere, because you need to create something. You need loud music and you need a very good sound system, which is rare. And it disappears into the atmosphere if you've not got a roof or whatever. So that is difficult. I have seen it done. I've seen certain tracks like Poole, and I've seen Glasgow do this. I've seen Glasgow run a couple of playoff finals and stuff like that. They've used smoke flares but again, it needs to be, unfortunately, it needs to be a very cold night in October to have that. So there are ways of doing it. I think there are certain ways that I think you can still create atmosphere. I think music's important. Music association is massive in any sport. Again, I see that in darts all the time. The players have their own walk-ons and they have their own tunes, and people are, that gives that association again. And it becomes like when you hear certain themes where, on day to day, on the radio, people go, "Oh, that's such and such," or "That's such and such," So that's important. Again, it can be done. It's got to be done with good lighting, and it has to be done with great sound systems. But there's one big element of that which is a problem, and it costs money. And that's the biggest problem Speedway's got. I mean, and the one thing I will say is I don't think enough attention is paid to that. I think people talk so much more now about the team they're putting out and the cost of that team they're putting out, rather than the presentation is just as important as the 7 riders they put on that track, if not more important. And the emphasis that's been allowed to just drift over a long period of time. But good lighting, good music, well thought out, building an atmosphere properly, that can be done in a really well. But the days of riders walking out of a pit gate and meandering to a start line to be called out one by one and just go off on the bike, those days have got to end. And Speedway's got to get with it, and it's got to present it. And if you again look at what's being done on, video games and how things are promoted on them, and it's all very loud and exciting. And so again, it's not easy. I'm not kidding anyone in here that I have a magic wand and I can say this is easy to do, because you need the stadia as well. You need the good stadiums to do it. And but people do it. People put the effort in, and it can be done properly.
And finally, just a look ahead to this season. Obviously, we've got a few changes to how things look. There are only 6 teams in the Premiership, but quite an interesting looking championship as well, especially with Jason Crump back in both leagues, and somebody that you've worked closely with, and you must be excited to see him back out on the track, and some other big names such like Bjarne Pedersen as well joining him at Plymouth. Some headline names there around British Speedway this year.
Absolutely, and I think that I did laugh when Jason said he was coming back, over a year ago now, and I fell about laughing. I thought it was a wind-up. But listen, Jason is box office. I mean, whatever happens, Jason isn't. This is a new chapter. This has got nothing to do with with what he did when he finished in 2012. This is a new thing, new chapter for him, and whatever happens, wherever he goes, he is going to be box office. He is going to put bums on seats. People are going to want to see, when he turns up at Edinburgh or whatever, they're going to want to see Sam Masters is going to want to beat him. Or if he goes to Glasgow, Cook's going to want to beat him. Wherever he goes, it's going to be that sort of thing, which is absolutely priceless. And he's going to bring that element of excitement to every single track. There are lots of. I think the Championship is a particularly good league, and I think it's going to be a very exciting season. I think everyone's delighted to be back, and hopefully it'll all go to plan. That there's going to be no setbacks with getting racing back on. I'm quite excited for a lot of the reasons which we've mentioned. Is that I think there's maybe from the outside, I just feel there's a bit more parity this year. I think there's going to look like, because there's a natural evolution of the riders are not coming back, and no disrespect to them, but I think that means there's a bit more parity in the team strengths, and hopefully that will mean closer meetings and closer racing. But time will tell, and we'll see how see how it pans out. But obviously, very excited to be coming back to Speedway.
Speedway's back, and with fans from the 17th of May onwards through the course of the summer. It's going to be an exciting summer of Speedway. And my thanks to Phil Lanning for joining us. Thank you, Phil.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, you.
My thanks to Phil Lanning for joining us in this episode of No Brakes, No Fear, the official podcast of British Speedway. Still to come, we're going to hear from a man who's captaining 2 teams this year. He's going to be the captain of the Eastbourne Eagles and the Kings Lynn Stars. We'll hear from Lewis Kerr next. And we'll hear from Belle Vue Aces legend Joe Screen, who's been offering his tips on how to get the best out of the National Speedway Stadium. All on the way.
No Brakes, No Fear, the official British Speedway podcast.
Welcome back, I'm Ian Brannan, and right now we're going to turn our attention to Lewis Kerr, who's set for a very busy year ahead because he's been appointed the captain of Eastbourne for the new championship campaign. Kerr, after a successful first season with the club in 2019, takes over from Edward Kennett, who's going to focus on his role as number 1 in the team. He's also going to be captaining the Kings Lynn Stars as well, and we've caught up with him. Ryan Guest paid him a call.
Well, Louis, the 2021 season is just around the corner now, and for yourself, back with Kings Lynn in the Premiership and Eastbourne in the Championship, and first and foremost, 2 clubs that you really feel at home with.
Yeah, exactly. They both feel like home to me. Eastbourne as much as Kings Lynn now, so exciting times ahead, really. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it was already known that you were going to be stepping up as captain with your local side, Kings Lynn, but the news coming out last week that you'll be skipper of Eastbourne now in 2021 as well, and I'm guessing that's a huge honour for yourself.
Yeah, it is. Like I said, both clubs, captain. It's a big year for myself, and it brings the best out of me, and I'm looking forward to taking that on at Eastbourne as well now, and yeah, I think like I said, it brings the best out of me, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, just expand a little, if you don't mind, on how you feel that sort of added responsibility will bring the best out of you.
Well, I think as a captain, you want to, go out there and show everyone, how it should be done. I know it's not always going to go to plan, but I think it gives me that sort of mentality to go out there and, as a captain and show what has to be done. And I like being around all the boys, and like geeing them up. I'm not one for just sitting in my chair and overthinking things, and so that side of things, it takes my mind off certain things and working myself up too much. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a big year for yourself, like you say. I know you did treasure your own personal 2020 during the pandemic, as it did bring some unexpected time with your young family. But 2021, it's all about kicking on again, on track and getting back to where you want to be.
Yeah, no, exactly, mate. I mean, there's some positives to take, like you said, with spending time with the family and stuff. But, it's been a long time now, and I just want to ride my bike. So, I'm really keen. Everything's preparation's gone really well, and I think it's going to be a good year for myself and both clubs.
Yeah, it's not just been the domestic side of things for yourself, though. You've been heavily involved in the Great Britain Speedway team camps, and you've still got some pretty serious ambitions that you want to push on and achieve in your career.
Yeah, massively. It's that's one of my biggest aims is to make the GB squad every season, and fortunate enough, I've done that this year. So I've had a few ups and downs along the way up last few years, but I know in myself I've got a lot more to show, so that's the plan.
Just looking at those Great Britain Speedway team camps a little bit more, if we can. I know you've been really impressed with everything they involve, whether it be on track or off track.
Yeah, massively. Like I said, Rob and Vicky and everyone else do a great job, and very professional, and we have the full support of every aspect of Speedway. So, we haven't got any excuses. You just got to knuckle down and work hard in every way possible, and hopefully things come together.
Well, Louis, I know you are one rider in particular who is hugely respected across the whole of British Speedway, and we wish you all the best for the season ahead.
That's Ryan Guest in conversation with Lewis Kerr ahead of a season being captain of the Eastbourne Eagles and the Kings Lynn Stars. Now, have you ever wondered what it would feel like to have a skid around Manchester's National Speedway Stadium? Well, a number of people had that opportunity recently as the National Speedway Stadium opened its doors for those with the relevant equipment and a little bit of knowledge to have a go around the 347-metre iconic circuit. Also on hand was the current Aces team boss Mark Lemon and Belle Vue Aces legend Joe Screen to offer their pointers and tips of how to get the best out of the bikes. Hayley Bromley caught up with Joe Screen.
So I'm with Joe Screen, Belle Vue legend. Joe, we've had the first Belle Vue experience day here at the National Speedway Stadium. What did you think?
Brilliant, yeah, good day for it. It's all new to everybody, the way COVID's been. It's been a bit weird the last few years, but it's great to see. We're running a training day for kids, and some of the old team riders as well from Belle Vue are here, and it's great to see them back on track.
And obviously a lot of new faces that we've not seen before here for the benefit of the experience day. They're raving about it already, aren't they? They've had a good time.
Well, some guys will never get the experience to ride here, again, with age or whatever it is, the older you get, the sort of the wiser you get. But some of the boys have loved it, He's a friend of mine there, he's on a GM, upright GM, and he's blasting around there and enjoying himself, and that's the main thing, enjoying.
Has it given you the bug to maybe try and have a go around the National Speedway Stadium?
Maybe one day. I can still ride. I've got my cable hours out a couple of weeks ago, but today, I could probably have a go today, but I wanted to help a few people and see what it's about. But we'll see. Hopefully, I'll get to have a ride one day.
And if to anyone out there who might be, thinking about doing one of these experience days, what would you say to them?
Brilliant. There's not many riders here today, so I think the riders have been getting 6, 7, 8, 9 rides, so you can get a lot of track time. So I think the busier you get, the less sort of track time you do get. But I think if you keep it a small venture like they are doing with less of riders, you get more track time, and I think people will appreciate that more if you're getting 6, 7, 8 rides to compare with going somewhere else, paying less money, queuing. And getting 3 or 4 rides through the day, whereas I think Benji and the boys have had about 8, 9 rides, so you get what you pay for.
Well, Joe, thanks very much, and thank you again for joining us today.
Anytime, mate. We'll see you soon.
Do you know that Joe Screen held the track record when the Bradford track closed at Odsall, and now the track's been reinstalled? I'm wondering if that track record is still valid, because the track is the same length and the same shape, I believe, which would make Joe Screen still the fastest man in British Speedway, I think, if the calculations are still correct. Anyway, we can look at that another day. There he was speaking to Hayley Bromley for the Belle Vue Aces official social media channels. So that's it for No Breaks, No Fear for this week. Thanks for spending the time with us. We're back next week. We've got loads already lined up and a very special guest. The one, the only, the man with a Bobby Dazzler shirt, which he will be wearing, you just won't be able to see it. But Scott Nichols will be joining us on next week's episode. Join us for that. Have a great week. Not forgetting, of course, there's more Speedway action this coming Friday, May 7th in the National Development League with the return fixture of the other fixture we've had so far this season, Armadale versus Berwick. Their chance to get a little bit of revenge on their home turf this Friday. Of course, we'll let you know what happens on that one, all the results and the latest from your club, always available at speedwaygb.co.uk. No Breaks, No Fear is produced by Nigel Pearson Media for British Speedway. See you next week.
No Breaks, No Fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Today, we discuss Miro. Today, I want to talk about the hellscape that is technical diagramming, right? Everybody's nodding their heads right now, And there is a potential solution that I want to share. There was one name that several people brought up. I did some digging, and it's kind of nuts how much this program Miro has for developers. I have to share this. It could potentially be a game changer for you. So my favorite part about Miro is that half the work is already done. Like right now, typically we spend hours starting diagrams from scratch, gathering information. You get buy-in from every team. That's a lot of work to do. But Miro has a full set of integrations with the tools you're probably already using. And they also offer open APIs and SDKs for custom solutions for all those niche diagramming diagramming use cases we have to do, right? So the end result is the same, but it doesn't take forever. It's a massive, massive time saver. I'm transforming basic flowcharts and network architectures, and it all lives in one place. So are you using Miro? Have you used it? I want to hear.
That's Miro.com.